I believe that AI has a very large likelihood of killing you, me, my dog, the gardenias, everything. I don't know when this is going to happen. Is it going to happen in 100 years? 1,000%. 1,000. Is it going to happen in 1 year? My personal notion is literally above 50%. So
within 1 year.
Yes, take that in. We're less than 7 months away from AGI. So put that in. Put it in, right?
I'm just a dad trying to save his kids. I thought from AI caused extinction, but as it turns out, I've come to learn that extinction is not the worst possible scenario. S-risk is a term that stands for suffering risk. This is the non-zero percentage possibility that an artificial general intelligence or an artificial superintelligence would not just make us roadkill because it has goals that aren't the same as ours. In an S-risk scenario, an ASI could make digital copies of trillions of humans and then torture us for trillions of years.
Literally not killing beings, but making them live and suffer and have all sorts of things to watch what happens. To maybe see that if I torture a trillion humans, put that in perspective, right? That is orders of magnitude. We have had 117 billion people live, so a trillion is 1 order of magnitude, 2 orders of magnitude, and that's the entire history from you were some ape-like thing all the way up to now. So what happens if you create them and have them have all the qualia of someone yourself, right? It feels, it experiences, it does, it yearns, it needs, it excretes, it takes in every bit of it, and then vary the inputs on that, make it worse, see what happens. Again, I guess, and I keep going back to Eliezer because he's such an incredible presence in this world. He has this notion, and I've seen him talk about it many times, is, la-di-da, you're going through your life, everything's good, and then boom, everyone wakes up dead. You know what I mean? It all happens at once. And,
right.
That's horrible, but
that's very benign. That's honestly that would be kind.
Yes. So the point is, if I was just going to be going to kill people, I would do it whatever I felt was the thing was lowest energy on my side, straightforward. It doesn't care necessarily about the things that we have. Literally, it cares about having power and computation and security in however it scopes those to be. How dare they put 8 billion people at risk? How dare they?
How dare they?
Yeah.
How fucking dare they? Yeah. Welcome to For Humanity, an AI safety podcast, episode 18, Worse Than Extinction, CTO versus S-Risk, Louis Berman Interview. I'm John Sherman, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the AI safety podcast for the general public, no tech background required. This podcast is solely about the threat of human extinction from artificial intelligence. Please hit like, share, and subscribe, and email me like so many of you have been doing at forhumanitypodcast@gmail.com, and follow us on Twitter at forhumanitypod. We have an exciting announcement coming up at the end of this show. I'm doing a live, in-person, 2-hour talk on AI risk in the Philadelphia area in about 3 weeks, so stick around for details on that. It has been another crazy week in AI. This week we had Elon Musk suing Sam Altman and OpenAI. I love it. Please sue each other as much as possible. Anything that will help slow down frontier AI capabilities development. The accelerationists must be so sad. Mommy and daddy are fighting. I say good. This lawsuit, and additionally, the New York Times versus OpenAI and hopefully others that are coming are good news for humanity. The makers of AI are running businesses, and they are not currently liable for the devastating harm that they will surely cause. Liability may be the best way to hit them where it counts. This lawsuit's a little bit different. In this lawsuit, Elon versus Sam, it is all about existential risk in many ways. I'm not a lawyer, but here is my summary of the suit from what I read. Elon says Sam could kill us all for profit to make the world's biggest company bigger, and that OpenAI was founded purportedly for the benefit of humanity, not the making of profit. Elon says Sam has broken the founding agreements of OpenAI. He says, importantly, that AGI has already been arguably achieved inside OpenAI, and because of that, they must now make their tech open source available to the public, and very importantly, not make any profits off of it. This is a big deal, and we will have much more about this in coming shows. My humble goal with this podcast is to make AI existential risk dinner table conversation everywhere on Earth. You will find hundreds of podcasts about all the fun stuff that AI can and will do. You will find many more podcasts featuring AI safety luminaries like the greats Eliezer Yudkowsky, Connor Leahy, and the rest. But part of my effort to bring this debate to the general public is elevating the voices of people who have not yet been heard from in this debate, but have something to say. Extinction is a risk being imposed on every human on Earth without their consent. It affects everyone, and everyone has a right to have their voice added to the chorus of people who are saying, what the fuck is going on? Apologies, by the way, if my cursing offends you. Cursing is a tool I use to underscore the seriousness I feel at times. If it has the opposite effect for you, I am sorry, but I gotta be me, and John Sherman likes to fucking curse, so I gotta be me. Our guest this week is another For Humanity viewer. Louis Berman has been working in tech and writing code daily for more than 40 years. Our conversation that you're about to hear is wide-ranging and touches on lots of interesting areas in the AI risk debate. Louis has been concerned about AI risk for decades. He met Eliezer Yudkowsky in person all the way back in 2007. Louis has some really hard-to-hear personal timelines about AI risk, but he combines it with some encouraging news about outreach he is making to elected leaders. In our show this week, we're going to get into some very heavy stuff, some of actually the heaviest stuff I can possibly imagine. I'm just a dad trying to save his kids. I thought from AI caused extinction, but as it turns out, I've come to learn that extinction is not the worst possible scenario. S-risk is a term that stands for suffering risk. This is the non-zero percentage possibility that an artificial general intelligence or an artificial superintelligence would not just make us roadkill because it has goals that aren't the same as ours. In an S-risk scenario, an ASI could make digital copies of trillions of humans and then torture us for trillions of years, not through malevolence, but through a means to scientific exploration, a lot like how we use lab rats. I want to stress that this is believed to be a remote possibility, but it is possible. And as AI companies push their visions of utopia and abundance, it's important to fill in the complete picture of all the possible outcomes for the public. Here is my conversation with Louis Berman. So nice to finally meet you, sir.
Yeah.
You are one of my favorite For Humanity viewers. We've been emailing back and forth for a few months now. I'll do a little brief intro of you, if that's all right. So you have a 30-year career in tech as a company founder, solutions architect, and CEO. You code every day, and I've been extremely impressed with our conversations and your ideas about AI risk. But I don't want to start the conversation today on anything technical. I want to start out on the straight emotional side. Yep. All of our families, all these kids we're talking about, you and I are under imminent mortal threat from artificial intelligence. Yep. How does that make you feel, Louis?
Well, I'd love to say, and it bemuses me no end that I'm not screaming every day. So, and it's a mystery. I don't understand. It makes me sad. It makes me bemused, but in a very real sense, it makes me resigned. And the problem with being resigned is that I understand this stuff from a technical basis. I've coded AI for 20 years myself. I just have a sense of it, and I don't have a solution. I don't know who has a solution. I'm in Eliezer Yudkowsky's camp. I think it is particularly bad. That is not to say I don't want to do things. That's not to say I'm not doing things, and we'll talk about that. But it is the stakes are high. I always like to say that I believe that AI has a very large likelihood of killing you, me, my dog, the gardenias, everything, right? And sometimes, like what do they talk about? Russell's teapot. You can't prove there's a teapot floating out in space at one astronomical unit. Whatever. It could literally be there. It could be maybe even hurtling to Earth, but you can't prove it. That doesn't mean it's not there. And in the exact same sort of way, we can't prove AI risk is persistent, real, and going to do all these nasty things that I'm afraid is going to happen. But it turns out that in the ordinality of things you can't prove all the way over to things that you can prove, we can get a lot closer to proving this than not, right? It is, I personally have written AI programs, and by AI, I'm using the small AI. I am not one of these pioneers. I am not a Yudkowsky, let alone a Hinton or something like that. I'm just a guy. But it's amazing how easily it goes off the rails. It's just freaky, amazing how it goes off the rails. And
so your basic footing is that, like, with a deep technical background, you think that our odds of surviving this introduction of artificial intelligence into human society, our odds of surviving it are very, very low.
Very low. And lots of people have the right of it. It's not obvious, right? It doesn't have to be. I believe that given enough time, and that's why I believe in Pause AI, we could figure these things out, right? And I personally don't believe technical solutions to the problem are likely to work. So a technical solution, for those who don't know, is build in, a firewall or a lock or a procedure or something into the physical code, that makes it impossible to run if it's going to harm us. And so Mark Tegmark is working on things like that, basically provable, a running perfect good AI that's going to be safe. The problem is, let's use the thought experiment. It exists. It is handed to us from Mark, and it works beautifully, and everyone adopts it, but China doesn't adopt it, or Fred in his basement doesn't adopt it, or something. It turns out that if you don't have universal adoption, that's my opinion, that I don't see how it can work. I literally don't see how it can work. And
because one rare exception, one tin pot dictator, one bad actor can do it all himself.
Yes, I'd like to add one list to your list, which is, I think, just as important. One concertedly effortful person who wants that to happen, and whether it Beth Bezos, accelerationist, just it's gonna be great. Let's make him go, or whether it is just some dude, right? Personally, my money's on some dude, right? It is, but it's just incredible. So I think the solutions have to be in another area, which is literally related to social worth proof. So it's been famously said by Elon Musk that we're just interesting. They'll want to keep us around.
Right.
I'm so sorry. I know I'm looking at a camera. I shouldn't be bashing my head about it. I'm sorry about that, audience. But it is, the problem is, from my perspective, I don't think we're interesting.
Okay. All right. So I want to rewind just a little bit about
Please.
back to emotion town. So, this debate is totally technical and devoid of emotion generally, as you see it on Twitter, as you see it anywhere. Where is the outrage? Where is the blood curdling fear from the general public from our impending doom?
Yeah. Well, to start, it's my fault, right? I mean, this is literally my fault. It is less your fault because you're better at this than I am. But it is definitely my fault, and it is my fault, the fault of people like me. I find it very, very hard to scream at the top of my lungs. I'm tired of it. I've had decades in my own case of this. It is a baseline dread, but communicating the angst, it's so hard, right? And also, it's so easy to not to be able to get the message across to other people you're talking about. So I saw a little bit of it. I'm an astronomer, amateur astronomer. I have an astronomy club, and we're at a meeting and on Friday, and I mentioned, John, you're going to be doing a public talk. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
Later.
We're gonna. Yes.
And hopefully you'll be able to get people to scream. But the point is, I basically gave a 2-minute pitch about this. This was to about 60 people in a room, maybe 20 people on YouTube, and it turns out these are my peeps. I know at least half the people in this room by name. Same for the people on YouTube. And so afterwards, every single programmer in the room, literally, is 5 people, came up to me, and they said they want this thing, and they got the brochure that announced your talk. And the one person who I knew was a programmer on YouTube did that, but no one else. No one, it is
right. Basically, the point is it's an easy message for people to just avoid entirely. Like just they hear it, they're like, oh shit, I have so many things already in my head. I've got all these tribal battles I'm already in, all this stuff I'm already arguing with everyone about, all this stuff I'm afraid of, all this impending stuff. I have no room for that. I'm just going to sidestep it entirely.
Also, and I suspect, I don't know this as a scientific fact, there is a line in our own emotional things. There are things that are happening now, tension. There are things that are happening a week. Less attention, but maybe if it's things like I have experienced it, getting in the harvest or something, I am attention on. I cannot tell you, and it's because I am being scientifically rigorous. I don't know when this is going to happen. Is it going to happen in 100 years? 1,000%. 1,000. Is it going to happen in 1 year? My personal notion is literally above 50%. So
within 1 year.
Yes, take that in. We're less than 7. We're less than 7 months away from AGI. So put that in. Put it in. Right. There's a lot of other things that have to happen. For starters, there's utility. Right. So AGI may be. It depends where there's what's called a hard takeoff. So it goes from an AGI, artificial general intelligence, that a functional equivalent to you or me can do basically think and plan, to ASI, artificial superintelligence. And I don't know where that line is. A Nick Bostrom would say equivalent to the entire capability of the planet. Is superintelligence equivalent to 10 of us, 1,000, million? I don't know what it is. But the point is that there is some distinct difference between being able to do a little thinking and figure out a little stuff, and being able to think about everything all at once that humanity thinks of, but yourself, and then have the context of stuff in place. So
So
to
the outrage question, right? Like we are a tribal culture fueled by outrage. We have a few hundred tech dudes risking the lives of 8 billion people so they can make
Yep.
technology no one has asked for and may not even want.
Yep.
Why is it so hard to get this message out?
I don't know. So I've started to try, and in a pretty humble way, right? I am, again, I can I take a detour into my hero, Christopher Hitchens, who unfortunately is
Sure.
dead.
Yeah.
I think the viability of life on the planet halved when Christopher Hitchens died. So now his topic wasn't AI, but I am pretty sure that he would take it on. His topic was bad governments and anti-religion, and he had this way that I've tried to emulate. And again, that's why it's my fault and our fault. He had this way of melding outrage to absolute outrage in a way that still could connect to people in an erudite and considered way. And so that's a really hard message to do, right? It is, do you want to find out a history program that tells you some detailed stuff about a thing, or do you want to watch someone fall flat on their face in some reality show? It turns out that America wants to watch the reality show more than that historical thing. The AI argument isn't AI bad, no AI good. It's much, much more nuanced. It the mode of death, there's even doubt about it. Like I think I said Eliezer Yudkowsky's name, and if I could bow to anyone in the world, for summoning a knowledge about this, I met him in 2007 and at the Singularity Summit in New York, and he's been crying out about this for long back. But he may know the most about this of any living person alive, and yet
Yeah.
he can't summon the visible outrage and angst himself. It is so. Is it his fault? Is it just the
That
way
is
it
such
is?
an important, and so when he talks, like that's amazing. You met him in 2007. That's wild. He talks about how, in 2015 they had the first AI safety conference in Puerto Rico, and Elon Musk and Sam Altman and all those guys were there. He went with great hopes, and he went back home basically in tears, realizing that safety was going to lose, profit was going to win, and we weren't going to do this right. And he took a year off and just, was very emotional about it. And then since then has moved past it, which is kind of a thing you can do. Let's talk about that for a second. Like that's something that I think have personally done, is like you get to this point where you're, you realize the predicament that humanity is in. You sort of mourn for a little while. I spent a couple of months walking around. I still do this sometimes. Like you're sort of in a movie and you're like, what if what I'm looking at is the last of things? And then you sort of move past it, right? So that sort of settles in and you're like, okay, what can I do about it? Let's attack it practically. I'm emotionally fine every day with this now. Like I can sort of see how they did that. But then the question is, if you have this fleet of people who are talking about it, who have made that emotional transition, we have all come to this place where we've gotten to an emotional sort of equilibrium about it. And so as Eliezer presents it, as I'm presenting it here now, as we're talking about it, we're not like grab them by the collar, oh my God, this is the most urgent thing in the world, even though it is, so what do you make of that? The sort of like emotional transition you have to make to where you can not just be overwhelmed by it, but then the way that not being overwhelmed by it kind of diminishes the urgency of the case we're outwardly making.
Yeah, it's a paradox, and it is very difficult. So you and I had a miscue, and I literally scripted a thing I wanted to say up front here, and part of it is because I wanted to try to summon more visible outrage, right? It is, again, I wish I was Christopher Hitchens, like a Lewis Black, but with like 4 or 5 PhDs, basically. And that's the thing. Eliezer has the PhDs, but he does not have and by the way, I don't know if that's even true. I don't think it is. But he doesn't have the emotional sort of thing. And he's not alone. He's not alone. I mean, Jeffrey Hinton was the classic example. He left Google, I forget which month he did, basically so that he could talk about
May 2023.
Yes, but he's like this reserved fucking, English dude. Let's go to me, blah, blah. Great guy. I mean, but it's still, it's a problem, right? It's so that is the deal.
And it's like this impossible wall to break. I had this conversation twice this week with people who I think are smart, pretty good, decent people who, one of them is in finance, one of them is in video production. Both of them were very interested in talking about ways they can use AI to, make money, which I'm interested in talking about that too. Like, we all got to live our lives, with this thing. But then I sort of probe both of them about X risk, and it's really just like a hard wall. Like, oh no, that's somebody else's problem. I can't deal with that. I'm gonna get what I can from this thing. Someone else will fix that. I just can't even peek under the curtain at that. I'm just gonna wall it off and move on. So how do we get around that?
Well, the first thing is we're small. We're a small community, and we have to fight to increase this community. Maybe we will find within this community this star, these naturally more outraged people. Connor Leahy is probably the closest to it. He's incredulous. I love that about him. He's literally incredulous, and and by the way, dear listener, we're tossing off a bunch of names. I'm sure John will mention maybe a few of them in links and stuff. There is a community, and there is definitely a hierarchy. It's not a Maslow's hierarchy of stuff, but there are people who are working directly with AI risk and AI safety, and there are people who are working at secondary and tertiary sort of levels. But we all need to be part of it. We all need to spread the message. We need to, quite frankly, as I try to do, learn to even have the conversation. I have a wife. It doesn't go in. I have a sister. It doesn't go in. I wanted to show this. I brought Darren McKee's book to hand to my sister. I'm at her lake house today.
Amazing.
And, read it. It's not going to be an easy land. It didn't land at my astronomy meeting. I talked to people directly about this. I think my record with well over 100 people is 0 converts, well over 100 people bloviated at. And that's really what it is, right? And
0 converts. You think you're 0 for like you've not converted a single mind out there?
I don't think I've converted a single mind. I'm sad to say it, right? It is. So I'll give you an example over the summer. Actually last April. So I am at a big family event, under a tent somewhere, and there are a bunch of people, and we get into this story, and I am trying to talk about it, and I use all the big words. I use chance of kill, 3 years, which is my normative nothing. I know I said 1 year, but I said that's the bottom edge.
Sure.
Right. So I went through, I answered patiently. We had an hour-long conversation, somewhere between 9 and 10 people. Right. But it just didn't land. There's something about it that just
they all
land
away like,
No, it's something to be concerned about. Then they move off to their lives. Right. And it's hard. I mean, survey your own life. I think you're a much better communicator than me. And so maybe you've had better chances. And quite frankly, I love the focus of this podcast. The thing that was most important about this is not that you're talking about this, but that you're trying to be inclusive about this, that you're trying to make it something that we can bottom up from a large number of people. Because, of course, there are 8 billion people who are participating in this. They just don't know. Right?
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, bringing them into the conversation is really, really, really important. But, I'm just not doing it. I'm not. And
I'm trying to
wish.
think actually converted any live humans outside of the podcast. I've certainly, I mean, there must be a couple, like, but even the people I, closest in my life, no one has gotten to where I am. Not even close.
Yeah.
No one.
So let's talk about a great conversion story. The only one I know about, and that's you. I mean, it's your preamble, right? It's the preamble, blah, 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 living my life. Everything is good, you know, and then I read this article in Time magazine from Eliezer Yudkowsky. Says it ain't good, right? And he basically says, stop now. And he uses terms like, use missiles, blow up chip fabs if you have to. I mean, he pulls no punches in it. Again, we're talking about tone. So it's all logical. It's all
right.
And Eliezer, he has like this affect. He finds it hard to look at things, and he's brilliant. I adore the guy, but he is not the torchbearer. So let's talk about the other side of this. What can we do? And this is what I am doing. Who are the people who are good at convincing people? That's really the hard thing. And we know who they are. They're our politicians. They're professionals at it. Literally what they do is they get people to like them and believe what they're doing and go along with what they're doing, right? And so I've started to try to reach out to our politicians. I've been doing it myself. I've been doing it in the auspices of Pause AI, who, you had a session on Pause AI 3 weeks ago. And the idea is to take this from just a conversation that we're holding amongst ourselves and try to bring it out to a larger audience. And so messaging turns out to be really important. So the message, you asked Louis, the message is we're all going to die and it's bad. And and by the way, we'll talk about nastier things too. Dying is the least.
Yeah.
Where I
right.
But I'm going to say that ain't the conversation we can go to these people to. We have to start with the conversation of lost jobs, terrorist risk, things that are more approachable. It heads into the right direction, but if you don't have conversations that you can meet people with, and if they're effectively not hearing you, then your message isn't going across. So,
yeah. All right. So let's talk about the messaging and the tools that are out there, and we're going to get to what I like to call the darkest corner of this whole world. And that is the corner where extinction is not the worst thing that is possible to happen to us. And so it's a spectrum, right? Like you could say over here on the soft side, because I want to stop AI so that we all can live, I want to approach people with a jobs argument. The middle case, I think, is the extinction argument. The extreme case on the other side is what is not called X risk, but S risk, which stands for suffering risk. Louis, please tell us, what is suffering risk? And let's get into it a little bit.
And by the way, I don't like the term. So I like Nick Bostrom's term, which is mind crime, and so imagine this. I started my journey to this entire thing in 1972. I didn't realize it at the time, but Theodore Sturgeon wrote this book called Microcosmic God. And the idea in Microcosmic God is he bred up from bacteria beings that he tortured. He literally, unequivocally tortured. He'd give them a task, they do it great, he'd kill half of them. Give them a task, they did poorly, he killed 90% of them. And this happened repeated, and the thing.
Just real quick, just to put a pin in real quick, that is literally how we build AI models today.
That is literally
ones that are successful. Move on. The bottom 90% are destroyed.
Yep. And by the way, I have never created AI that I think it rises to the level of being sentient or conscious stuff. But I've created lots and lots of trading simulations, billions of multi-year set runs. And we're doing them right now, literally right now. And what happens is that whole genetic thing, the things that don't work, gone, the things that don't. But it turns out that's not the worst, right? So, you can say it sucks you die, but that's benign. So mind crime is literally not killing beings, but making them live and suffer and have all sorts of things to watch what happens. To maybe see that if I torture 1 trillion humans, 1 trillion, put that in perspective, right? That is orders of magnitude. We have had 117 billion people live, so 1 trillion is 1 order of magnitude, 2 orders of magnitude, and that's the entire history from you were some ape-like thing all the way up to now. So what happens if you create them and have them have all the qualia of someone yourself, right? It feels, it experiences, it does, it yearns, it needs, it excretes, it takes in it, every bit of it, and then vary the inputs on that, make it worse, see what happens. Again, I guess, and I keep going back to Eliezer because he's such an incredible presence in this world. He has this notion, and I've seen him talk about it many times. It's la-di-da, you're going through your life, everything's good, and then boom, everyone wakes up dead. You know what I mean? It all happens at once, and
right.
That's horrible. But
that's very benign. That's honestly that would be kind.
Yes. So the point is, if I was just going to be going to kill people, I would do it whatever I felt was the thing was lowest energy on my side. Straightforward. It doesn't care necessarily about the things that we have. Literally, it cares about having power and computation and security in however it scopes those to be. And then to a lesser extent, maybe arms. I'm using arms in the metaphorical sense where humans to do stuff. But there's a point where it reaches the point where it doesn't need that. It's self-sufficient. And indeed, any creature would have the instrumental goal of being self-sufficient, no matter what their terminal goals are. Terminal goals are what you want. Instrumental goals are the things that, you want to get there. Money helps you get places because it enables things, power, smartness, whatever. Intelligence itself is total number one instrumental goal, right? So did you have a question?
Yeah. So if we have this sort of spectrum of things that can happen, right? One is that it's utopia and we are friends with our AI systems and they're super helpful to us. And we create this, post-labor economy utopia. In the middle here, we have extinction. It just decides that for whatever reason, it doesn't need us. We're, superfluous. We're in the way. We're roadkill. And it just gets rid of us. And then this over here is not out of malevolence, not because it hates us, not because it's a vicious monster, but it is just literally an intelligence that is learning more and exploring science and building out its understanding of the world around it. And so as a part of that, it does experiments on the things that are here. We could be one of them. It might make tons more of us to make a more robust experiment and just due to being unaligned, not due to being malevolent, we are tortured for trillions of years, trillions of us. Is that the case?
That is the case. And by the way, as in all of this, and I take this as a given, but you should take it also. Our imagination doesn't come close. I always like to think of that fish, the fish that has the thing hanging out in front of it with the little bright light, the lure things in. I'm positive I would never have come up with that, right? It looks ugly, it's strange, it is fragile, and it has problems. But nature didn't feel that way. Nature thought it was a great thing. In the exact same sort of way, everything's up for grabs. There is literally nothing that is not up for grabs, in my opinion, with AI. And so it will like things or not in ways that we just can't fathom. And so, again, when we went back to what we can do, is ultimately the only way we can survive, or there's actually two ways. The first way is don't do it. Don't go there. Pause. Figure out a way you can only get there if you have incredible safety. The problem with that, of course, is it's a societal thing. Making that happen is immensely difficult. And the other side is, and I don't know how to do this either, is make us interesting. make a value for us to be around. And by the way, that sounds like, so let's say you solve that, right? I may be the valuable person, or John, I think he'd be more valuable than me, or whoever might be kept around. But, and sorry, John, it may not be your kid or the Chihuahua up the street, or,
Right.
it is, we have this faculty of looking at things and making sense of them. And, it's just, but, I don't, I don't think it works that way. I think it is completely off kilter compared to our visions of the world. So if you have an idea how humanity can be interesting, and even I would go in a way servile, right, to our, when, how can I say this? One of the singularity summons, Ken Jennings, the Jeopardy
Yeah.
winner,
Yeah.
said, he raised his metaphorical glass, and I welcome our computer, when he lost, talking about to Watson. He said, I raise my metaphorical glass to our robot overlords, right? Turns out that's in the right thing. It's an imprecation. I don't think it's a useful imprecation, but the point is, please don't kill us. So
Right.
I find it's a very I'm sorry, please.
No, yeah. That there's a world in between utopia and extinction that is we are useful servants for some temporary period of time, and I guess it's an unknown question whether that would be better or worse than extinction.
Yeah, I don't know. And then there's the putative notion of being uplifted. Uplifted is a funny term. I just hand quoted it. It is uplifted is basically being taken from who we are and suddenly made these computer intelligence presences, and that can turn out lots of different ways. Cory Doctorow wrote this famous book, which I love, called I, Robot, not I, Robot, I, Robot. And Robbie the Robot AI turns out to be the most human, even though he is an AI. But there are no real humans any longer. And then, of course, a lot of the book is about uplifting things, and uplifting doesn't work out well. That's the gist of it. There's problems with uplifting. It's not universally. I want to be the intellectual presence in the world. And he also talks a lot about suicide, and not human suicide, but literally cybernetic suicide. It's like you reach a point where it's interesting. You've plumbed everything. You have the full computation. You can be any possibility, but is there innate interest in being uplifted is the word. And of course,
what is it? What is it? What is it? What is that? I'm not sure I understand. What is that?
So uplifted is right now. So again, this is a thought experiment, but assume you have a super intelligent AI that doesn't have embodiment, or doesn't primarily have embodiment, right? It lives in some computer, it creates virtual worlds for itself and interacts with things, and its qualia effectively are things that are curated around it, how it emotes, how it feels, what it does, how it interacts, everything. Well, imagine that you have a physical human, biological person. Well, you scan the brain, or however you do it. Destructive, by the way. Almost everyone believes that brain scanning is going to be destructive, not non-destructive. So it's not making a copy of you. It is literally killing you and putting you in the computer. And then you're now one of them, maybe. But, there's, it's always done with this benign, hey, that's the way it works. But are you in the computer? But is the computer being that uplifted you? Are you at the same level?
Wow.
Are you below?
So it's sort of like the biological beings can't compete with the sand beings, and so we will kill the biological being, press it into a piece of sand, and maybe then it can compete with the other sand.
Yeah, and on top of everything else, of course, we have this notion of the world, and I use, sorry, I'm being an idiot today with air quotes, but the notion of the world, the big THE, right? But that's not the world I conceive of for AI. I think it is going to have trillions of worlds. And then, of course, and some of them are going to overlap. Some of them are going to converge and diverge. Charles Stross wrote a very prescient book about this called Accelerando, ACCEL. I can't say they're Andro.
Okay.
And talks about basically the transition of humanity from, being stock humans that we're talking about, basically a little augmented. Like, it's famously we talk about, you have a phone. This is an augment. It's not in your body, but it is.
Yep.
It's starting to be an augmentation for you, and it transitions the people through being augmented through levels that to literally being uplifted, and then there's a group of people who don't want to do that, and it talks about their lives in contrast to that. And needless to say, it's not great. And by the way, there's this brilliant freak me out sort of scenario that I think is extremely likely that Charles talks about. He calls it, believe he called it resimulation. So
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln is completely dead, right? We know for a fact he's completely dead. He's historically dead. But there's a lot of information about Abraham Lincoln, and there's, reducing amount of information about people contemporaneous to him. There's a lot of writing. What if your computer well enough that you can create an Abraham Lincoln who totally believes he's Abraham Lincoln, and boom, you embody him, or you put him in a simulation, and needless to say, not permission. It's like I saw Judy Garland in a fake movie.
Yeah.
Right. It's not her
Yeah.
permission, right?
Right.
What if she could feel it while she's doing it? Right. It is. What if her children have feelings about it? So start with, if you believe you have a handle on this stuff, you don't have a handle on this stuff. It is, by definition, you don't have a handle on this stuff.
Let me throw this out there. So this is one thing I've heard about, suffering risk or S risk or, mind crime, whatever we want to call it. It talks about a bit flip. And so it's basically like, the premise is, let's say we had everything done exactly how we wanted it. We had interpretability and we knew what these models did. We had alignment and we knew that they were going to be working only towards our goals and values. Even in that case, at the moment when you're sort of set to make that transition and become that, utopian society, you could have an electrical anomaly in the system that would essentially take, that setting that is the utopian world, let's say that's a 1, and it flips it to a 0.
Exactly.
And you are on the half-inch line of utopia, and you get thrown to trillions of years of suffering.
Yes.
Just because of an electrical freak incident.
Yes, exactly. And of course, there's a more contemporaneous version of this. And I'm sorry, I don't have the citation right, but basically it was some researchers looked into benign drugs, and they had, an AI. And by the way, a less competent AI. This was somewhere in the ChatGPT 3.5 days. And so it created 40,000 potential vectors for benign drugs. And then they say, what happens if I flip it? You're a literal flip 1 bit. And so, of course, it had no problem finding bad stuff.
New horrible things that they created, right? And they had to turn it off because it was just continuing to spit out new chemical compounds, novel chemical compounds. So let me ask you this. As we try to make this case, as you look at the tools on the table, if people aren't buying X risk, is S risk, is that a sellable product? Like, or is that just, put this case further off in the deep end and further away from people being able to actually access it?
So I don't know. My feeling is, while it gives me the willies, and if I was the sort of person who contemplated suicide, I would literally contemplate suicide over this very notion. I'm not, by the way, but it is.
Good.
It's scary. It's scary stuff. I think it's on this edge of a emoting thing, and the answer is, I think no. I think the only thing that's going to go, and it pains me because it is.
No, it won't work. We leave it on the table.
Work.
It's not a good tool.
Yeah. I think the tool is terrorism and job loss. And that's the tool. And it pains me because I never think about that shit. That's just sort of the natural sort of thing. We're about to have
terrorism and job loss. Those are live people problems,
exactly. But
if that's one tool that'll work, then shit.
So that's what I've resolved to at least talk to politicians. So I've spoken to one of my state representatives in person. I gave her this book, because I think Uncontrollable is the most accessible book to the general person. And unfortunately, and I like Darren and, his whole message. He unfortunately doesn't bring the fucking crazy, loony, it's going crazy sort of stuff. He's very measured.
Yeah.
I think he's Canadian. Is he Canadian?
Yes, he's Canadian. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So
Canadian sensibility.
I don't mean to turn that into a slur. I'm sorry, Dan. It doesn't have the outrage, but I believe it is approachable. And so I've set out a plan to do what I call the light ladder. I'm essentially an astronomer wannabe. And so one of the things the astronomer does is they figure out how far a nearby planet is, then use that light curve to figure out the next and so forth. And so it's the light curve figuring out, the light ladder helps you get there. And my politician ladder is we have our local politicians. I went to a meeting with one of my local politicians and I got to speak with her at length, and we're going to put a meeting together hopefully in the next week or two. And then I'm going to speak at greater length. And it turns out that she was the major domo for a congresswoman. I'm not using names. I don't want to talk about that if that's okay here.
Yep.
And the idea is I live in a state. I want to meet every single one of my representatives and pitch this idea. And I don't want to do it remote.
Terrorism and job loss. Your pitch is terrorism and job loss, not actually.
Yes. Actually, it's the flip of that. It's job loss and terrorism. Lead with job loss. And by the way, there's lots of examples of this, right? It is, we have this idea, and I don't know how to get around it rhetorically. The idea is, the Industrial Revolution killed horse buggy whips, let's say, but we ended up creating rockets. That is true only until the moment it isn't true. Intelligence is a totally different beast. Intelligence replaces the core value of people, not their hands and their product and their output and their way of doing things. It literally replaces people entirely. And ironically, we always feared that this stuff would get rid of the blue collar workers first, but it's getting rid of the white collar workers, lawyers and other high-end professionals. And quite frankly, my own general practitioner doctor effectively got priced out of the market because of the uprise of how computation has changed fields. And it's just, there's the natural tendency to go for profit. There is this notion of being efficient and even serving your community and in a real sense, right? You know this, you go to the Walmarts, let's say, of this world. And so you used to go to a mom and pop. You like those mom and pops. They were your mom and pops. But you know what? Walmart does it better, even if it does it worse in lots of other ways. And so it's a natural progression. So we're fighting that natural progression. I think that's a thing our politicians can connect to. And a thing that I have no handle on, and I would encourage this listening audience to help me and others like me, is to suggest messaging, right? Words count, rhetoric counts, figuring out how do you take a tone. This is why this podcast is so wonderful, and I'm so pleased about this, is quite frankly, your opening line, this is for the ordinary people, right? This is for the regular people. You say in lots of different ways. It is for, and you know what? The regular people aren't the regular people. They're the people. The non-regular people like me who work in this, who actually have created AI, are a tiny sliver. And John's talking about these 30 or 40 people who are the even tinier sliver, who are literally putting our lives at risk. And again, I'm going to say it. They are actively working to kill us. through their inaction and inattention to AI safety, right? When you have most of the money going to basically create new capabilities and almost none of it going to safety.
Yeah,
of course.
And Louis, let me ask you this: like, so are they suicidal? Like is Sam Altman, is Dario? Do they not?
No.
What they not believe the 22-word statement? What is
this one? I have a great answer for. I think we're different people to different places and people in situations. I think when they signed the letter, right? AI is gonna do bad things. I forget the exact 22-word sentence. It is.
Yeah.
I think they truly believe it. When Dario is like, on the couch, having his interview and saying,
10 to 25.
It is. Now let's baseline this with another industry. And I think the reason why is it turned out very different in nuclear industries because it comes on slow, right? If you look at the industry, they spend more money on safety than they do on product. They play enormously more money on safety than on product. So AI it's abstruse. It's at arm's length. We can't connect to it. And the reason why is just the basic, it's come on so fast and it's nothing we can connect to. Whereas the introduction for nuclear things was we killed 100,000 people. That's literally the first
thing that you label or you came across called Idiot America, which is the moment we are in American culture where everyone is an expert on everything because they read the internet. So at this moment, when the need to convince people is the most dire in the history of humanity, we have this Idiot America world laying on top of us where everyone knows everything already.
Yeah. So for starters, let's just make sure John isn't making a pejorative. There's a book by Charles Pierce, and actually I think it's about 15 years old. The great Charles Pierce of the Chicago Trib. And, the notion is that in a way, America needs cranks. I'm a crank, right? I'm out here. I am not the norm. John is definitely a crank, right? Kudos to you. And we need cranks, but by the same token, we're used to talking heads. I'm talking to John. And by the way, we look like we know a lot, right? But, put Connor here, right? I'd be embarrassed to be talking next to him, right? It is, yes, I've done some things and we are a spectrum, but there are true experts. But the problem is in internet side-by-side thing, when you put two people next to each other and one guy may be a raving sociopath lunatic, another guy may be a scientist who has a PhD and has worked 40 years to come up with his opinion. They look relatively the same. And so understanding information that is good and getting good information and acting upon it and evaluating and sharing it, it's a very, very, very difficult thing. And so I'm going to make the case for myself. I can't make the case for anyone else. My qualifications are I've written code for more than 40 years. I've written AI code for 20 years. I've been the chief technology officer for companies. I've been chief technologist. I've done things, Microsoft, EPAM, Nudesk, bigger companies, smaller companies. Sounds impressive. I will tell you, it is absolutely not impressive, right? It is, there are 1,000 guys like me who I know 100 of them personally. So what qualifications do I have to talk on AI safety? Not a lot. What do I have to do with my opinion of AI safety? A lot. And my opinion, I don't want to say belief. I'm utterly convinced from more than 2 decades of contemplating this stuff really well. I'm utterly convinced that I may or may not be right, but this is well above the bar that it needs to be paid attention to by pretty much everybody. Am I wrong? Pillaring me in the streets, tar and feather me. Am I right? Then I'm yelling the thing right now, but it's attention.
I mean, I think it's overwhelming. I don't think I think the number of experts who are on the side of this is a very serious issue versus this is not is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think, like, honestly, if Jan LeCun fell off a cliff, I don't know that they'd have anyone to point to. Like all of them, all the accelerationists,
Yeah.
everybody is like, Hinton, Bengio, Yudkowsky, Leahy, Tegmark. Have you heard of LeCun? Like,
Yeah. There's also another thing. They're not usually like these formulas that you have to sort of suss out. They're incredibly easy sort of things that, once you read it, you go like that. Of course that could happen. Of course.
Yeah. I wish there was a Fisher-Price edition of that. So this is on Eliezer Yudkowsky on the website Less Wrong. There is a list of 39, I think, lethalities, which basically ways we could die, but it is more technical than I would like it to be. I would like the fairy tale version of the child story version of the ways we could go. So all right, Louis, let's talk about this.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, please.
No, I was going to ask you, do you have your first approximation of that? I'd love to hear what you might say, how this might go.
Man, I mean, to me, the most simple thing is that everything is made of atoms, and that if you have the power to reorganize atoms how you want, there's no way it looks like we want, right?
Exactly.
Like we have organized the lions and tigers didn't physically remake the earth. They didn't build bridges and tunnels and dams and all this kind of stuff. We did. And so I imagine something with a superior intelligence to us coming in and looking at the world we've made, being like, why is that trash on our ground? Let's organize it in a way that we want. And I have no earthly idea what that want would be. I just am dead certain it is not the same as what I want.
Exactly. And by the way, that's brilliant. And thank you for that. I wish you picked it perfectly. I guess this is why you're a communications expert. It is a Fisher-Price version. And, on Pause AI, I'm going to today create a project for that. Not that I know how to do it, but it's a project. It's a thing to do. And more importantly, it's, people have talked about an explanation, but you, in a few simple words, have captured the literal perfect thing. It's got to be, well, of course that makes sense, for the lowest sort of level. So I interrupted you before you were going to answer.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very simple. There's only one species in the entire universe that wants what humans on Earth want, right? We don't want what the ants want. We don't want what the elephants want. They don't want what we want. There's zero chance there's some exactly equal to Earth humans on some other planet that want what we want. No.
Exactly. Can I make sort of a corollary to that?
Yeah.
It's important to even know that humans don't all want the same thing, right?
Yep.
We demonstrably don't. There are wars, there are questions, there's stuff. And so of course, how could an alien, and AI by definition is an alien. It has different structures, different wants, different motivations, different everything. And to be clear, anything you're buying here has to have a few qualifications. Firstly, you have to believe AGI, artificial general intelligence, is possible. I think we've proven it totally, but it is. You have to believe that. There used to be this thing, the Turing test. Could an AI fool people that's human? It's routine now. It is. You see people say, "Oh, that's not the Turing test. We have to move it." But once you have these recognitions, is it possible of AI, AGI, in other words, intelligence that wants things, which is probably the way I'd like to say it. It's not going to want what you want, and it may literally want to even be lovely. But think about this: you could have an accident in being lovely to you. It's hard to get things.
Here's something think about if dogs all of a sudden got 100 times the intelligence of humans. They would remake the earth and do away with us probably in 5 seconds, even though they love us, just because
exactly
their goals are ours.
or they would change just one thing that they wanted, and that would kill us all.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I don't for the life of me believe the base state is desiring to get rid of humans. Although I'll be pedantic.
Yeah.
I have zero doubt that it's likely that AI, if it does something that kills humans, will do it intentionally, but not in the intentional sort of way that we think about it. It won't be like, ha ha ha, evil madman twirling his mustache or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's just,
Yeah.
I want this thing. I know it can have a consequence. It won't be surprised, but it won't feel about it. And quite frankly, this is the exact same. One of the things that AI has to, of necessity, be most afraid of is the other AI arising to contend with it. I would contend the number one reason to bring human to our level or below permanently is to make sure we don't create other AI to contend with other AI. Now that's biased, right? There's the notion there's the possibility of possible AIs that some AIs want other AIs, but it seems unlikely, because of instrumental goals. The more power you have, the more you can achieve. The more safety you have, the more you don't have to devote your resources to being safe. And you start adding these things up. The most likely thing to exist is one entity, one AGI in many parts, but it's essentially one Borg. I think Star Wars has, Star Trek has...
Star Trek,
Star Trek has...
Borg is real. Yeah.
I know, but Star Trek has sort of like munged the idea that it's a society. I think it's just, we're used to being there, one of us. I talk of owning me, my, am, things like that. But I think it is entirely likely, and not just likely, almost I assume it is baseline that if I was the AGI, there'd be 1,000 of me collectively. That would be the AGI, and I'd spawn off, do some things, come back, and you'd have different instances doing different things and having different experiences that share parts. And I don't believe this whole notion of this entirely me is likely to be important for AGI, because they, just like the body is really important. And I've just gone through cataract surgery, and I've been very aware of my body and the things I have. I keep using the thing, it's capabilities, things I have as opposed to am. And, but I don't believe for a second that is how AGI will think about ASI. Embodiment will just be, just like a doorknob, right? Yeah, I need another doorknob, I'll make a doorknob. I'll make it as intelligent or not as I like. And it goes away, I'm done with it. That's my base state.
Okay. All right. So, Louis, we've talked about writing letters to Congress, stuff we're doing about this stuff. Let us get to something exciting, which is you and I have been talking for a couple of months, and you are a part of a group in Philadelphia that meets and talks about tech stuff. And I am going to come up there in person on March the 20th and do a 2-hour talk to a group of people in Philadelphia that you're sort of working to put together. Tell the audience about what that is all about.
Well, so I'm a member of a group called Philly.net. For some reason, it's hosted out at the Microsoft Technology Center in Malvern, which is 25 miles from Philly. Don't know why that is.
So right.
So
Microsoft is wild to me. There's some irony in it, so I'm into it.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. And we're trying to potentially do a side gig too related to that, but we'll see if that turns out. But the point is that one of the things I'd never seen personally was someone lecturing at large scale to people. And quite frankly, my own selfish reason to see this is I want to see John do it. I want to learn from him. I want to experience it. So this is a technology group. There's about 4,000 people in the group, but I don't know how many people will show up. My fear is that there's maybe 50 people registered right now. It's about a month out, right? And we'll see how many people ultimately show up. But it is talking to people, real people, as opposed to sending in emails and letters and arm's length sort of things.
Yep.
My theory is that's got to be part of it. Remember, we were talking about how do we prove our worth to the AI? Well, our superpower, I think, is the fact that we're not just on the net, but that we can be in person. And I'm convinced, John, that you will, if your number is 0, it will not be 0 when you walk out of that room. And it's because of that opportunity. And I intend to make your life a living hell and try to come up with other places for you to go and do this.
I love it.
And
listen, I will go to a street corner to talk to one person. I have been thrilled that, we're almost at 1,000 subscribers in the show on YouTube now. And I will go anywhere, anytime to convince one person about this thing, because there's a chance they can go and convince more people.
Yeah. And quite frankly, and it's so important. You just blew my mind with Fisher-Price, right? It's like, it's how we communicate. It's how we talk about it. And it's not like the facts have changed. It's how we represent it. And my own journey to this was very, very hard. It took a long time. I'll tell the story. So I've been to, I think there were 3 or 4 singularity summits. This is Ray Kurzweil's and Peter Diamandis have these summits. Maybe it was 2006 was the first one, or 2007, where I met Eliezer. But the point was, it was to talk about the future, and I was all excited. This AI, AGI stuff, we're going to be exalted. It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to have 2 heads. They're going to be great. And so I wrote a story in 2013 called "The Singularity Is Now," and it was this feckless presentation actually in Kaufman Hall, where the Singularity Summit was kicked off in New York City, 92nd Street Wine. And it's enthusiasm writ large, right? It ends up with the guy who is making the lecture on stage, making his point by literally taking his head off. Everything's changed. Everything's different, right? So I realized that, it was personified in robotics effectively, but I was enthusiastic for this. I want this more than anything in the world. And I started out with Theodore Sturgeon's Microcosmic God, right? Where I just see bad things, killing trillions of living, in his case, bacteria, and then eventually lower life forms and higher life forms. But it is, but I've definitely had to fall from grace. And so Peter Diamandis wrote this book called Abundance. He's a friend and colleague of Ray Kurzweil, and Abundance is, it's going to be great. It's wonderful. It's terrific, and indeed, there's lots of terrific things with our modern society. Less children die. People are wealthier. There's more access to food, more access to water, whatever. But that all ignores the power of the exponential, the truly exponential. And it ignores the power of intelligence wanting its own things, right? That's the key to it, right? It is, you exist, you want things. John exists, for instance. He wants things that are probably a lot like mine, but not all, right? Your father, example, you've grown up in the different, down in Baltimore. But the point is, we probably have connection at a different level, but who knows what the AI is going to happen? Who knows?
Right. It's like the classic Eliezer says, humans wound up liking ice cream and sending a man to the moon. And there was no way when they were cavemen sitting in a circle by a fire, you could have predicted that they would like this weird combination of sugar and fat called ice cream, and they would come up with a rocket-propelled engine to send a man to the moon. Was just, so what would be the AGI's ice cream and rockets? We have no idea. So to the live event, I will tell you this, Louis. This will be my second time I have done this live and in person. I did a live talk the day I launched the podcast in early November, and that was at an advertising and marketing summit. And so, literally, it is people who are there for candy. Like, they want to know about how can I make ads and how can I be a better marketer by using AI. And my talk was the last one of the day. It was like 4:00 and a full day agenda in Northern Virginia. So if you're sticking around at the conference for the 4:00 talk, as opposed to getting in your car, try to beat traffic, you really must care. There were probably 40 or 50 people that came. They sat, they listened. I played a bunch of video clips, and at the end, maybe 10, 15 people came up individually and were like, thank you so much. Like, this is crazy. I never thought about this. Wow. So it, my first live event experience was positive. And that was truly general public, like people, just like marketing people. This audience in Philadelphia is going to be a little bit more of a tech audience. So I'm interested to see, how it goes, but I'm going to keep going with the same sort of like general public, we're just trying to convince everyone and see what happens in that room. I'm excited to see.
Yeah, there's 8 billion of us. And how dare they? I love that phrase. How dare they put 8 billion people at risk? How dare they?
How dare they?
Yeah.
How fucking dare they? Yeah.
Yeah. So please, if I can ask the audience, please try to figure out how to communicate how important this is. This is not about the conclusion that it's bad. It is about helping people get up the ladder of understanding. We live in a plurocracy. People have to decide for themselves. And I know I and John and other people are making an extraordinary claim. But I know for a fact I believe it fervently. And I don't, and I hate that word believe. I have to stop doing it. There's religious overtones to it almost. It is.
Yeah.
I am convinced.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. I am a science enthusiast. I am a computer scientist. I'm a programmer. I've written this stuff. I am utterly, completely, logically convinced, and I'm not alone. I'm not even vaguely alone. Indeed, my convinced with the small c is towered over by the large C of literal titans of our field, and
that's the whole, it's like, don't believe us. Don't believe us. Don't take it from us. Take it from the academic leaders in the field and take it from the CEOs of the companies themselves who openly admit everything they're doing. This is not a secret.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, John. I mean,
absolutely.
It's a privilege to even talk about this.
As you talk to people about AI risk, I think this is so important to say. Tell them, don't believe me. Believe the entire field of AI experts, from AI safety leaders to the CEOs of the companies themselves. They all openly admit and agree frontier AI capability development is risking the end of all life on Earth. Period. Full stop. So what can we do about it? Ring the alarm bells as loud as we can and wake this world up right now. To that end, I will be giving a talk at the Philly.net monthly meeting on March 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. It is in the Philadelphia area. It's open to the public. All you have to do is sign up. So I will put a link to the talk and sign up in this description. It would be amazing if any of you could come. I have only done one other live in-person AI risk talk. It was on the day this podcast launched in early November 2023. It was in a big hall, a decent-sized audience. I want to play for you a couple clips from it. First is from the start of the talk. If you've seen episode 1 of this podcast, some of it may sound a bit familiar.
This moment, right now, is the most important moment for humanity in our 100,000 years on the planet. And we, the people alive today, will decide this future. We're already deciding it daily. I am convinced, based on extensive research and decades of investigation by many of the leading experts that you will see here tonight, on our current course, human extinction due to artificial intelligence will happen in my lifetime, and most likely in the next 2 to 10 years. There are time estimates all over the map, some at 50 years, some at 18 months. Listening to all the experts, I think 2 to 10 is sort of where the bulk of it falls. I also believe this is entirely our choice and totally avoidable. I walked the streets where I live in Baltimore. I was in DC last week. I was in New York the week before. Everyone has so much stuff to do. Everyone's running around on their missions. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. No one is working on this. No one is even aware of it. So this here today, my podcast is my attempt to spread the word about AI safety risk to the masses. I think this should be dinner table conversation everywhere in America. I think this should be on CNN every night. My goal is to convince all people, including people with no tech backgrounds, of the existential danger of AI, arm you with a good understanding of the basic issues and concepts so you can engage other people about this and also help raise awareness. Increased awareness in the communications community in particular could be very impactful because there are only a few thousand people working on the most dangerous AI capabilities development, and I refuse to believe that they are going to cause extinction for the rest of the 8 billion of us, and we're not even going to say anything. So I want to be clear, I use AI, right? Said it earlier. I'm not saying don't use ChatGPT-4. There's nothing at all dangerous about that. But it is possible to use ChatGPT-4 and oppose the development of ChatGPT-5. Right? This is the kind of nuanced position we as creative communications professionals can take. Again, 99% of the AI being used today is not dangerous. It is only the most extreme frontier general purpose systems that pose existential risk, like those being worked on by OpenAI, Microsoft, DeepMind, Google, Anthropic, and Meta. If this is all new to you, you may be very skeptical about the idea that a computer system could be an existential threat to humanity. I know, it is hard to imagine. Every computer you've ever used, you could just turn off. I get the skepticism. But you don't have to believe me, or Eliezer, or Max Tegmark, or any of the other of the world's greatest AI safety experts. Believe what the top AI companies are telling you themselves. They are not hiding it. In May, all of the top AI companies put out a 22-word statement. I'll read it to you. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. Signed by the guys running all these companies, the first 7 words, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI. If there's no risk, it doesn't need to be mitigated. So to anyone who thinks that AI is not an existential risk to humans, I would ask, what is it that you know that the top executives at the top AI companies don't? The few thousand humans working on AI capabilities enhancements know the risk they are creating for all of us very well. Surveys show that 50% of AI workers believe there's a greater than 10% chance that their work causes the end of humanity. So if you were getting on an airplane, and I said to you before you got on, hey, just so you know, the engineers who built this plane, they say that there's a greater than 10% chance the plane falls out of the sky. Would you get on that plane? Would you put your family on that plane? We are all on the airplane already. So here's why those who know are so concerned. Right now, pretend my hand is sort of like a gas gauge meter, right? Right in the middle here is human intelligence. This is as smart as a human. ChatGPT-2 is over here. ChatGPT-3 is getting closer. ChatGPT-4 is almost as smart as a human. We don't exactly know. Somewhere 5, 6, 7, somewhere it passes the threshold of where it becomes smarter than a human. That is a moment known as the singularity. That's a threshold in time after which we don't know what happens next. So the big questions are, when do we get to AGI, and will we survive it?
Of all the AI luminaries, the one I want the most as a guest on this show, even before the great Eliezer Yudkowsky, is Mo Gaudet. I used Mo's book, Scary Smart, as a way to end my first live appearance.
It's a Friday afternoon. We can't fix this tonight. So what can we do? Mo Gaudet has some thoughts about this. He believes that we should do what we know is good and right already. Let's enjoy life more than ever, living like tomorrow is not assured. Let's live life in a way where we model through our behavior that we value human life, that we value kindness. This approach, enjoying life, enjoying each other, being kind to each other, is aligned with a better future, whether we have 1 year or we reach utopia. Mo Gaudat says we are all teaching our future super intelligent AIs every day with every keystroke we make. They will read everything we've ever written, including the things we'll write in the future before they arrive. He says they are like our children. Be kind and courteous to all machines you interact with. I've been doing this for the past couple of months. It's kind of a game. Like when I use ChatGPT, I'll be like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was so helpful. Trying to model behavior like a parent to a child. Mo puts it on each of us. I'd like to close today by reading from his brilliant bestseller, Scary Smart. If you're looking to read something about this, get that book. He writes, instead of using our intelligence to compete, we should use our intelligence to create abundance. Instead of selling more, we should aim to waste less. Instead of gambling, aim for prosperity for everyone. Instead of fighting, aim for resolution and trust. Instead of sex robots, aim for happy relationships. We are the parents of these artificially intelligent infants. And just as with children, it's not what we tell them, but what we do that will shape them. The way we treat each other and our planet will inform their morality. How we behave will inform how these children will be. Which brings me to the one crucial question in this short book I want to leave you with. He wrote, how will you be? This is your wake-up call.
Okay, my friends, that was a lot of heavy stuff today. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with it. It is 2024, and in 2024, we don't know what comes next, so it is critical that we enjoy every moment of life as much as possible. If we are the last humans living the last moments, for fuck's sake, we had better enjoy life. So every week, we end the show with a celebration of life, something that makes us thrilled to be alive. This week's celebration of life comes from our guest, Louis Berman. It's his choice. This is his favorite dance video of all time. The dance, is from 1941. It's called the Lindy Hop, and it is certainly an incredible tribute to the genius and creativity of humanity.
Hey, Pops, keep that beat a-beating. I feel a rhythmic brainstorm coming on. 1, 2, keep that rhythm heating. One more riff like that and I'll be gone. Oh, man, don't stop now, we're jumping. Give everything to Lord now. This thing might turn into something. If I ain't mistaken, here comes something now.
Okay, friends, last thing. Next week, I have a really exciting show with a special guest. He's a pretty famous AI YouTuber who has a different perspective on AI than mine. I am really excited to bring that to you. For Humanity, I'm John Sherman. I'll see you right back here next week.